Today I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of climate change solutions. You see, we often lose our way by overhyping technologies that just turn out to be a lot of hot air, or we take for granted the tech that could actually save the day. So I wanted to create the definitive tier list of climate change solutions. For what it's worth, the IPCC did already kind of do this, but mine will be more objective and less boring. I'm Adam, a climate scientist with a PhD from Oxford, sharing what you need to know about climate change. And joining me this week to help out with the tier list is Dr. Rosie Barnes.
I'm Rosie Barnes. I have a PhD in mechanical engineering and 20 years experience working with energy transition technologies, and my YouTube channel is on the same topic.
So Rosie, we have to rank everything from S, which is the God tier, all the way from A to F. And we're basing this on how good things are for decarbonising, how cost effective they are, whether they're greenwashing, and even whether they would be safe. Okay, ready to go?
Wait, no, one other thing. Is it how good they are or how good the technology could be?
Actually, I've included some which don't even quite exist yet, so I guess then it would be a mixture of both. Yeah, there are lots of factors we need to include here.
Okay, cool. Let's go then.
Okay, so let's start as controversially as possible. Nuclear fission. So nuclear fission is what powers nuclear power plants that we have today, and it basically involves splitting apart heavier atoms into smaller parts, which then releases energy. Okay, Rosie, what do you think of nuclear fission?
Well, nuclear fission is great where it exists, but when you're talking about new capacity that needs to come on board, it nearly never wins over other technology options because it takes too long and it's too expensive. So I definitely would say that it's a mistake to close down safely operating existing nuclear power plants, but new ones are not going to save the day. So I guess that makes it like a C.
Yeah, I also feel quite mid about nuclear fission. I feel like there might be a bit more of a role for it in the future as we try and get to 100% decarbonisation, because renewables, as we'll get onto, can't produce power all the time, and so maybe nuclear fission could help fill some of those gaps, but then maybe so could other technologies, depending on what happens in the next 10-20 years of development. So we've approached this controversial topic as generically as possible and placing it right in the middle with a C. Also quite a controversial topic, which I'm surprised everyone has been talking about lately, is nuclear fusion. So nuclear fusion is what powers none of our power plants, but powers the sun. And it works in kind of the opposite way. It involves squishing together very light elements to make heavier elements. Rosie, how much potential is there, do you think, in nuclear fusion?
Heaps of potential. So I think that nuclear fusion is the, the energy technology of the future. And, the joke would be that it's always the energy technology of the future. It has been, 10 years away or 20 years away since the 1970s and remains that way. So I think really great technology for the next energy transition, but since we need to take out about like 90% of emissions from today's electricity grid by 2030, there's no way that nuclear fusion is going to play any role in that. So as part of this energy transition, I put it as, I don't know, an E or an F, because it's such a distraction.
I was really hoping we'd disagree more, Rosie, because I also think that nuclear fusion is a really overhyped technology. Where we're at today with nuclear fusion, there's a lot of fanfare about producing more energy than we put into it. But this would only really be like if a restaurant said it was making a profit because they were making more money than their raw ingredients. Maybe one day we'll be able to make a nuclear fusion power plant, but we don't know what that would cost. Thing is, it could still play a bit of a role, so I'm reluctant to put it right at the bottom. I think I would give it a D. And because I have control of the board, that is where it is going to go. So the next one is something that is much closer to Rosie's heart, which is wind power. What's your relationship with wind power?
I love wind power. It's a bit embarrassing to say, but yeah, no, I could definitely say that I love wind power. The reason why I got into wind was because the politics to do with climate change in Australia was so toxic. And I'd been working on a few renewable energy startups, but felt like, I've never actually made a green electron to replace a fossil fuel electron. So I wanted to work on an industry that was at that time nearly as cheap as fossil fuels. And now it is, one of the cheapest energy energy solutions, and so I put it as an A plus.
There's no A+. So, I mean, do you want it to be an S?
No, I can't put it S because it's not. I can accept that most people think that this is boring.
I was really convinced that this conversation would go the opposite way round, where Rosie would automatically say that wind power should be an S and I'd have to talk her down from it. But I am happy to put wind power as an A. I would also say, you know, there are still certain concerns about what you do at the end of the lifespan of wind power. You also do have to think about the fact that the wind doesn't always blow and you need other technologies in there. So I think A tier.
Yeah, sounds good.
Now, subcategory of wind, something I also know that Rosie has very strong opinions about, is putting wind turbines on rooftops in urban environments. Which to me, when I first thought about it, I just thought, okay, cool, yeah, great. All the wind everywhere. You wouldn't quite agree, right?
No, I hate rooftop wind mostly because I have to talk about it so often, and people assume that I love it, so I feel really mean. I won't put it really low. I'll put it either a C or a D. It's not helping. It's small amounts. I made a whole video about how why it just doesn't work. The resource just isn't good in urban areas. Yeah, it's just not the right place for wind energy.
It's not just about whether something works and whether we can do it. It's also the fact that we need to do this energy transition as quickly as we possibly can. But yeah, shoving wind turbines on top of buildings is not the quickest or best way of decarbonising.
And I would have a different opinion if we were really legitimately running out of space to put wind turbines, then I would be much more inclined to say every little bit counts, but we're not running out of space, we're running out of time.
Okay, it's time now, Rosie, for our lightning round. So I'm going to give you, I think, 3 different climate solutions, and you're just going to give your knee-jerk ranking with no explanation given. Here we go, let's start with hydroelectric power.
Huge yes, S when it's for energy storage, and maybe a B for energy generation, because it's hard to really expand much on what we've already got.
I just want to inflame you more about wind now. Vertical axis wind turbines.
You changed this list. My most popular video is about vertical axis wind, and now several times a week inventors send me their special vertical axis wind turbine inventions. D.
Okay, hydrogen.
Hydrogen gets an E.
I think a lot of people will find that last answer a bit controversial, but Rosie and I, a little while ago, we actually made a video all about why hydrogen is not perhaps worth the hype. You can check that out over here.
Okay, and here are 3 for you, Adam. First of all, veganism.
I'm gonna say veganism an A.
Ooh, controversial, putting an individual action so high up. That sounds out of character for you. Next, electric cars.
C.
It's hard not to engage further. And number 3, cycling.
Oh, I just love bikes. Oh, I'm gonna say B.
B for bikes.
Now, obviously, all of these rankings are absolutely unambiguously objective, and no one could possibly find fault with them.
Obviously.
But if for some reason you do disagree with one or the other of them,
or if you're annoyed because we didn't include your most loved or most hated climate solution,
then let us know in the comments below. Okay, so back now to the final 3 climate change solutions that I want to discuss, and the theme now is solar. So let's start with solar photovoltaics, which are the general solar panels that you're used to seeing.
Well, I put wind energy as an A, so I think I have to put PV as an A also. The energy that comes out of solar PV is cheaper than any other kind of energy generation, and the reason why I don't put it higher is because you see heaps of really cheap solar power in the middle of the day, but then in the evening when people want to use electricity the most, and at night then there isn't any around. So if you have lots and lots of solar PV, then you need lots and lots of storage, which is expensive. So worse problem for solar than it is for wind, and so that's why on balance they end up the same to me.
Also, where it works I think is really important. As someone who has always lived in much less sunny places than Rosie has lived, I'm very aware that solar doesn't always make the most sense in all locations. I think I agree with A for that. But then there's a subcategory of solar which is just shoving them on everything, like putting them on windows, shoving them on roads.
Solar freaking roadways.
Solar freaking roadways. My feeling with this is like a classic case of just because you could, it really doesn't mean that you should. And I feel like you end up doing both things worse when you end up just shoving solar on a road or a window or whatever it is.
You take the number one advantage of solar, which is its low cost, and just destroy that. You know, you just make it really, really expensive, really annoying, really high maintenance, you know, so the opposite of everything that solar PV is. So I guess I give it a D or an E.
Yeah, I guess D. Just stop putting solar everywhere. Final solar topic, something completely different, which is solar geoengineering, which is ideas to somehow try and counteract global warming by effectively blocking some of the sunlight which comes and hits us on Earth. Rosie, there's so many different aspects to this to consider.
Yeah, so my knee-jerk reaction is just a definite hard no, F or below even. I mean, there's just something about messing with nature in ways that you can't predict. But I will say that the more that I looked into it, the more neutral I became. And if it can be done cautiously, then it probably would be a good technology to have in our back pocket. D. I'll give it a D.
Unlike the other technologies, you're not just trying to stop climate change, you could actually potentially counteract some of it. But the fact that you could end up killing people is quite a strong warning sign for me, so F. But there are just so many different aspects of solar geoengineering to discuss, and I feel like this tier ranking doesn't really capture it.
That's why Adam and I have a video over on my channel about both the science and engineering and the pretty big ethical considerations of solar geoengineering.
You can watch that right now over here, and make sure you subscribe to Rosie when you do. Okay, until next time, bye.
I feel like I'm being like mean to one of my kids because I'm like talking down wind energy.